Welcome back to Capitol Review. Rare public pushback. That's what people are calling after Chief Justice John Roberts issues a public statement after President Trump called to impeach federal judges. That rule against the administration in deportation cases. Returning to Capitol Review is Zach Schonfeld. He is the courts and legal reporter with our media partners at The Hill. Zach, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you as always, Zach. Your reaction to Chief Justice John Roberts?
This was quite a remarkable statement, Mark, because of the fact that this wasn't some opinion in a case. This was a flat-out public statement that the Chief Justice felt the need to issue. And you don't see this every day. In fact, I can only think of one time when he's done this in the past to President Trump, and that is during Trump's first term, when Trump had made a comment about a judge at the time who had ruled against him in an immigration case, calling that judge a biased Obama judge. And then Roberts famously gave a public rebuke saying there are no Obama or Trump judges. So now this is the second time that the Chief Justice has felt the need to issue a public statement, effectively rebuking the sitting president of the United States. So quite remarkable. The statement didn't name Trump, but I really don't think there's much doubt as to who he was talking about here. It was issued just a few hours after the president had called for the impeachment of a federal district judge in the nation's capital who had ruled against him in this big deportations flight case.
Zach, take a listen to the White House response, and we're going to get your reaction on the other side.
The President respects Chief Justice Roberts overall. He just expressed that to me in the Oval Office, but it's also quite clear that the Supreme Court needs to rein in these judges who are acting as partisan activists, and they are undermining the judicial branch, and it's a dereliction of duty on their behalf.
Zach, your reaction?
I think it's interesting the fact that, the White House is almost showing some restraint there. Of course, we've seen for many years where Trump has not been afraid to go out and attack the judges who he perceives as his enemies, particularly when we saw him facing those criminal prosecutions over the last few years. But the fact here that the press secretary was there saying he respects the Chief Justice, I think, is showing some restraint to an extent, which is interesting because of the fact that President Trump is really going to need the Chief Justice's vote here in the coming months. There is already a case at the Supreme Court by the Trump administration, the case over birthright citizenship. That's a case where we're really watching the Chief Justice. He's seen as a swing vote really in the middle of the court. And there's probably going to be a lot of other cases headed to the high court too. So it's interesting to see this dynamic as Trump at the same time is also really going to want, Chief Justice Roberts and the others to rule in his favor when these cases get there.
Zach, you mentioned a lot of the administration's actions are in court right now, especially when we talk about DOJ and cutting jobs at the federal level. Can this have a long-term impact on the Trump administration as far as public perception?
Yeah, I know certainly there's been a lot of chaos with these rulings where you have, judges in courtrooms across the country just issuing what's frankly been a patchwork of emergency rulings, blocking, this provision of an executive order, this policy, this funding freeze, whatever it may be. And it really has led to quite a lot of chaos, especially for federal workers. You now have thousands of probationary federal workers who had been fired. A judge has now ruled that they have to be reinstated, but we're still in the early stages of these lawsuits, so there actually have been judges warning that there could be whiplash where these probationary employees are fired again. So it certainly has led to quite a lot of chaos at minimum here in the first few months of this new administration. And
Zach, quickly, do you expect this chaos or all of these court filings to subside or slow down as we move on, or is it tough to gauge at this point?
They've really been piling up. At this point, there's more than 100 lawsuits that we are tracking challenging major Trump administration directives, and many of these cases really do remain in early stages. Yes, there have been quite a lot of rulings already, but these have been preliminary and temporary rulings. So particularly as we see more of these cases progress and as many of these cases start to go up the chain in the appeals courts, it seems like we've got a lot more action to come for a while.
Zach Schonfeld, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.